Listen carefully because something is shifting around you at this very moment. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. You didn't just click on this message. You didn't just stumble across these words while scrolling without purpose. No, something deeper pulled you here. Something unseen, something intentional. Something divine interrupted your normal flow and brought you to this exact moment. And if you're honest with yourself, you can feel it, that subtle tension in your chest, that quiet whisper in your spirit saying, pay attention, this matters. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. Because there has been a presence in your life, someone whose energy never quite sat right with your spirit. You tried to ignore it. You tried to rationalize it. You told yourself, maybe I'm overthinking, maybe it's nothing. But deep down, there was always something off. Something you couldn't fully explain, but you could definitely feel. And now that feeling is getting louder. You started noticing small things. The way they speak to you sometimes carries a hidden edge. The way they react to your progress feels strange. Not openly negative, but not genuinely supportive either. It's subtle. It's quiet. It's the kind of energy that doesn't attack you directly, but slowly drains you, confuses you, and keeps you second-guessing your own instincts. You felt it, haven't you? That moment when you leave a conversation with them and suddenly your energy drops. That moment when something good happens to you but sharing it with them feels uncomfortable. That moment when your spirit whispers, be careful, but your mind tries to silence it. This is where most people make the mistake. They ignore the whisper. They override their intuition. They choose comfort over clarity. But you didn't fully ignore it. Something in you stayed alert. Something in you stayed sensitive. And that's exactly why this message found you now. Because what you've been sensing is real. There is someone around you who carries an energy that is not aligned with your growth, your peace, or your purpose. And the reason it feels confusing is because this person doesn't appear dangerous on the surface. They may smile. They may support you sometimes. They may even have history with you. Shared memories, shared struggles, shared trust. But hear this clearly, not everyone who is close to you is meant to go where you're going. Not everyone who knows your past is qualified to walk into your future. And right now, something is happening in the spiritual realm that directly involves you. There has been a shift, a decision, a movement you cannot see with your physical eyes, but your spirit has already begun to feel it. Archangel Michael, the protector, the defender, the warrior of divine order, has stepped in. Not passively, not gently, but with authority. Because what's attached to this person is not just emotional discomfort, it's spiritual interference. It's subtle influence. It's the kind of presence that quietly delays your progress, clouds your clarity, and disrupts your peace without ever fully revealing itself. And heaven has said enough. This is why things have started to feel different lately. This is why conversations don't flow the same. This is why distance is beginning to form even if no one has openly addressed it yet. This is not random. This is removal in progress. And here's the part you need to understand. You may feel confused at first. You may feel emotional. You may even feel the urge to hold on, to fix things, to go back to how it used to be. That's natural. That's human. But what's happening right now is not meant to be stopped. It's meant to be recognized. Because when heaven removes someone, it's not rejection, it's protection. And in this moment, you are being protected from something you cannot fully see yet, but you will soon understand. So don't rush to reconnect. Don't rush to explain. Don't rush to chase what is already being pulled away from you. Instead, observe, Pay attention. Stay still enough to see what unfolds next. Because this is only the beginning. Something is about to be revealed, something that will confirm everything your spirit has been trying to tell you all along. And when it happens, you will realize this moment, right here, was the turning point. Type "I trust divine removal" in the comments if you feel this message is for you. Blessing code 1010 is now surrounding your path. There was a moment and you remember it now, don't you? A small moment. So subtle that you brushed past it. So quiet that you almost convinced yourself it didn't matter. But your spirit paused. Your energy shifted. Something inside you tightened for just a second and then you move on. It was the first sign. You didn't call it danger. You didn't call it a warning. You called it overthinking. You called it stress. You told yourself you were just being sensitive. But what you felt in that moment was not imagination, it was discernment trying to rise above your logic. Because the truth is, the danger was never loud. It didn't arrive with conflict. It didn't show itself with obvious betrayal. It didn't come as an enemy standing in front of you. No, it came disguised. It came wrapped in familiarity. It came through someone you trusted, someone you let your guard down around, someone whose presence felt normal enough that you never thought to question it deeply. And that is exactly how silent danger operates. It blends in. It studies you. It learns your patterns, your habits, your emotional rhythms. It watches how you respond to pressure, how you celebrate your wins, how you recover from your lows. It gathers pieces of you quietly, not to understand you, but to position itself in a way that keeps you slightly off balance. Not destroyed, just delayed. Not broken, just distracted. Not lost, just misaligned enough to keep you from stepping fully into what you are meant to become. And if you think about it now, there have been patterns. Repeated ones. Moments where your confidence felt strong and then suddenly, after interacting with this person, doubt crept in. Moments where your plans felt clear and then confusion entered without explanation. Moments where your energy felt full and then drained for reasons you couldn't quite justify. You tried to ignore the pattern because each moment, by itself, didn't seem significant enough. But when you look at them together, you start to see something different. You start to see a quiet influence that has been operating in the background of your life for longer than you realized. And the most unsettling part is this: they didn't have to do anything obvious to affect you. Their presence alone was enough. Because not all harm comes through actions. Some of it comes through energy, through intention, through what is unspoken but deeply felt. There are people who can stand next to you, smile at you, even support you in visible ways while still carrying something within them that does not align with your growth. And your spirit have been picking up on it all along. That's why you felt that unexplainable hesitation. That's why certain conversations with them felt heavier than they should have. That's why, at times, you found yourself holding back parts of your life, your ideas, your excitement without fully knowing why. Your spirit was protecting you before your mind could understand. But here's where the silent danger became even more subtle. You started adjusting yourself to keep the peace. You overlooked small inconsistencies. You ignored slight discomforts. You gave them the benefit of the doubt again and again, even when something didn't fully sit right. You told yourself that maintaining the relationship mattered more than questioning it. And slowly, without realizing it, you began to shrink in their presence. Not completely. Not in a way that was obvious to others. But just enough to stay comfortable. Just enough to avoid tension. Just enough to keep things normal. But normal was never the goal. Alignment was. And what you were experiencing was not alignment, it was quiet compromise. This is what makes silent danger so powerful. It doesn't force you to change. It influences you to adjust little by little until you are no longer fully standing in your truth, until your instincts become quieter, until your clarity becomes clouded, until your awareness becomes something you question instead of trust. But something has changed now. You are no longer as unaware as you once were. You are no longer as willing to ignore what you feel. There is a growing awareness inside you, a rising clarity that is beginning to connect all the moments you once dismissed. And that is not accidental. Because once awareness rises, silent danger loses its power. This is why things feel different now. This is why you can no longer interact the same way. This is why your tolerance for certain behaviors, certain energy, certain dynamics has shifted. You are seeing what you couldn't see before. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is the beginning of exposure. This is the moment where what was hidden starts to reveal itself, not all at once, but piece by piece, in ways that you can no longer deny. And as this awareness grows, one truth becomes undeniable. What you once thought was harmless was never truly safe for your spirit. Type ISE clearly now in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 2020 is now activated around your discernment. Something has already happened and you didn't even realize it at first. Before you fully understood what you were feeling, before you could connect the patterns, before you could put a name to the discomfort, action had already been taken on your behalf. This is not something that is about to begin. This is not something that might happen if the conditions are right. No, this has already been set in motion. Archangel Michael has already moved. Not in hesitation, not in uncertainty, but with precision, with authority, and with a clarity that sees far beyond what you can currently perceive. Because what you are just now beginning to understand, heaven recognized long ago. What you are just now starting to question has already been evaluated, weighed, and judged in the spiritual realm. And the decision was made. There are moments in life where things shift quietly, without announcement, without explanation. No confrontation, no dramatic ending. Just a subtle change in energy, in access, in connection. And you're left wondering, why does this feel different now? That question, that confusion is often the result of divine intervention, already taking place behind the scenes. Because when Archangel Michael steps in, he does not always create noise. He creates separation. You may have already noticed it. The distance that seems to be forming naturally. The conversations that don't flow the same anymore. A lack of urgency in maintaining what once felt important. The shift in how often you think about them, reach out to them, or even feel connected to them. This is not coincidence. This is orchestration. What once felt close is now becoming distant. What once felt easy now feels strained. What once felt natural now requires effort. And you may have questioned it at first. You may have tried to fix it, to restore it, to bring it back to what it used to be. But what if it was never meant to go back? What if what you are experiencing is not a problem but protection? Because when something is removed by force, you resist it. You question it. You fight to keep it. But when something is removed gradually, when the connection weakens over time, when the emotional attachment starts to loosen without conflict, it becomes easier to release. And that is how divine removal often works. It doesn't always tear things apart. It gently pulls them away. Archangel Michael has already begun cutting energetic ties that you could not see. He has already started closing doors that you might have tried to reopen. He has already placed distance where closeness once existed, not to confuse you but to free you. Because the truth is, if this person had been removed suddenly, you might have chased them. You might have tried to understand, to reconcile, to rebuild something that was never meant to continue. So instead, the removal began quietly. A connection started weakening. The energy started shifting. The clarity started rising. And now you are at the point where you can feel it clearly enough to recognize that something is different, but not so abruptly that it breaks you. This is intentional. This is protection in motion. And here is what you must understand: in this moment you are not losing someone. You are being released from someone. There is a difference. Loss feels empty, confusing, and painful without purpose. But release carries intention. Release carries direction. Release creates space for something that aligns more deeply with who you are becoming. And the reason this had to happen now is because you are stepping into a different level of awareness, a different level of growth, a different level of alignment. And this person, as familiar as they were, could not go with you. Not because you are better, not because they are worse, but because your paths are no longer aligned. And holding on to misalignment always comes at the cost of your peace. Archangel Michael does not remove people out of punishment. He removes them out of precision. He sees what you cannot see. He understands what you have not yet realized. He knows the impact, the influence, the long-term effect of keeping certain connections in your life. And when he moves, it is never random. He is always necessary. So if you have been feeling that distance, if you have been sensing that shift, if you have been noticing that something is slowly, quietly changing between you and this person, do not fight it. Do not rush to fix it. Do not try to force what is being undone. Because what is being removed is not meant to return. And what is being created in its place requires space. This is the moment where you trust what you feel, even if you don't fully understand it yet. This is the moment where you allow the separation to happen without resistance. This is the moment where you recognize that something greater is at work, even if it is unfolding in silence. Because the removal has already begun. And what comes next will confirm everything. Type "I accept divine protection" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3030 is now activated around your life. As this divine separation unfolds, understand this: every message you hear, every revelation that reaches your spirit, is a seed being sown into someone else's breakthrough. When you choose to support this mission through super thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving to a channel. You are watering souls that are on the edge of awakening. The Lord declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy." And right now, your seed becomes light in someone's darkness, oil in someone's dryness, and fire in someone's fading faith. I feel this deeply. This is your moment to act, to respond, to align your generosity with divine purpose. Do not delay what heaven is prompting in your spirit. Your giving is not ordinary. It is prophetic. It is seen, and it is multiplied. Release your seed now, and watch how God opens rivers where there were once deserts. There comes a moment when what was hidden can no longer stay hidden. And that moment is closer than you think. You may not see it fully yet. You may not have all the answers, all the proof, or all the clarity you feel you need. But something inside you already knows something is being uncovered. Something is beginning to surface. And it's not because you forced it. It's not because you went searching for it. It's because truth, when exposed to divine light, cannot remain concealed. What has been masked will begin to crack. What hath been disguised will begin to distort. What has been carefully presented will begin to unravel. And the person you once saw one way will begin to reveal themselves in another. This is not about sudden betrayal. This is not about dramatic confrontation. No, this is far more precise than that. This is about subtle exposure. the kind that doesn't shout but becomes undeniable over time. You will start to notice inconsistencies that you once overlooked. Words that don't match actions. Attitudes that don't match expressions. Energy that doesn't match the image they try to present. And the more you observe, the clearer it becomes. At first, you may question yourself. You may wonder if you're reading too much into it. You may try to give them the benefit of the doubt, just like you've done before. But something is different now. This time you cannot ignore it. Because once the mask begins to fall, it doesn't go back into place the same way. The effort it takes to maintain a false image becomes harder. The cracks become more visible. The truth begins to leak through in small, undeniable ways. And even if they try to correct it, adjust it, or cover it again, you've already seen enough to know. This is the moment where clarity replaces confusion, where awareness replaces assumption, where truth replaces illusion. And it will not come all at once. It will come in moments. A comment that feels slightly off. A reaction that reveals more than intended. A shift in tone that exposes underlying emotion. A situation where their true priorities become visible. Piece by piece, moment by moment, the reality you couldn't fully grasp before will begin to take shape. And as it does, something inside you will settle. Not because it feels good, but because it finally makes sense. You will start connecting the dots. You will start seeing how certain behaviors, certain patterns, certain feelings you had were not random. They were signaled. Signals that your spirit was picking up long before your mind could interpret them. And now those signals are becoming evidence. This is what happens when divine light enters a situation that has been operating in partial truth. It doesn't immediately destroy, it reveals. And revelation is powerful because it removes doubt. It removes confusion. It removes the ability to pretend that everything is fine when it clearly is not. You will no longer feel the need to question your instincts. You will no longer feel the need to justify what feels wrong. You will no longer feel the need to hold on to an image that no longer aligns with reality. Because once truth is seen, it demands acknowledgement. And this is where many people struggle. Because seeing the truth means accepting it. And accepting it means letting go of the version of the person you once believed in. I can feel heavy. I can feel uncomfortable. It can feel like a loss even though it is actually a release. But this is why the mask had to fall. Not to hurt you. Not to create conflict. But to free you from illusion. Because you cannot fully move forward while holding on to something that is not real. And what you are beginning to see now is real. It may not be loud. It may not be dramatic, but it is clear, and clarity is something you cannot unsee. So as this unfolds, do not rush to confront. Do not rush to explain. Do not rush to prove anything. This is not about them realizing anything. This is about you recognizing everything. Let the truth reveal itself fully. Let the patterns continue to show themselves. Let the mask fall completely without interference. Because when the process is complete, you will not need confirmation from anyone else. You will not need validation. You will not need explanation. You will simply know. And that knowing will give you the strength to move forward without hesitation. Because what is being revealed now is not meant to be repaired. It is meant to be released. Type I see the truth in the comments if you feel this shift happening. Blessing code 4040 is now surrounding your clarity. Something inside you has shifted and you can't go back to how you used to feel. You've noticed it, haven't you? The way your emotions no longer respond the same. The way your heart doesn't lean toward them like it once did. The way conversations that used to feel normal now feel forced, heavy, or strangely distant. And at first, You questioned it. You wondered what chained you. You wondered if something was wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. What you are experiencing is detachment, and not the kind that comes from anger or resentment, not the kind that comes from conflict or frustration. This is different. This is quiet. This is subtle. This is the kind of detachment that doesn't need a reason to exist because it is not emotional in origin. It is spiritual. Because when divine removal begins, it does not only happen around you, it happens within you. Your attachment starts to loosen. Your emotional dependence begins to fade. Your need for their presence begins to disappear. And you may not even understand why at first, because nothing dramatic has happened. There may not have been a major argument. There may not have been a clear moment of separation. Yet something inside you has already stepped back. This is not confusion. This is alignment correcting itself. Because you were once emotionally connected to someone who was not fully aligned with your path. And that connection, over time, created habits, expectations, patterns of interaction that felt normal simply because they were familiar. But familiarity is not the same as alignment. And now that your awareness has shifted, your emotions are following. This is why you feel different. This is why the same conversations no longer excite you. This is why the same presence no longer comforts you. This is why your energy no longer reaches for them the way it used to. It is not that you suddenly stopped caring. It is that your spirit stopped depending. And that is a powerful shift. Because emotional detachment is not about rejection, it is about release. It is your inner world adjusting to a new reality before your outer world fully reflects it. It is your spirit preparing you for separation before separation becomes complete. It is a form of protection that allows you to let go without being shattered by the process. And yet part of you may still resist it. Part of you may still try to reconnect, to feel what you used to feel, to restore what once existed. You may find yourself thinking about the past, remembering moments that felt genuine, wondering if things can go back to how they were. But here is the truth you must face: if it were meant to continue, it would still feel the same. What is meant for you does not slowly lose alignment with your spirit. What is meant for you does not create confusion in your emotions. What is meant for you does not require you to question your own sense of peace just to maintain the connection. What is meant for you remains clear, and what is not begins to fade. This fading is not something to fear. It is something to trust. Because you are not losing your ability to connect, you are refining it. You are no longer responding out of habit. You are no longer holding on out of comfort. You are no longer staying connected out of obligation. You are beginning to align your emotions with your truth. And that truth is simple even if it is difficult to accept. You are outgrowing this connection. Not because you are abandoning it, but because it no longer fits who you are becoming. And this is where emotional detachment becomes necessary. Because if you were still fully attached, if you still felt everything the same way, if your emotions were still deeply invested, the removal would feel like loss instead of liberation. So instead, your spirit is creating space. Space for clarity. Space for acceptance. Space for you to step back without feeling like you are being torn apart. This is why your reactions have changed. This is why your responses have softened. This is why you no longer feel the need to explain yourself, to prove anything, or to maintain the same level of closeness. You are not shutting down. You are stepping back. And there is a difference. Shutting down comes from hurt. Stepping back comes from awareness. And awareness is what is guiding you now. So do not force yourself to feel what you no longer feel. Do not pressure yourself to maintain a connection that your spirit is already releasing. Do not confuse emotional distance with emotional failure. Because what you are experiencing is not disconnection, it is divine separation unfolding within you. And the more you allow it, the easier the next phase will become. Because soon, what you feel internally will be fully reflected externally. And when that happens, you will be ready, not confused, not broken, but clear. Type "I release what no longer aligns" in the comments if you feel this shift within you. Blessing code 5050 is now anchoring peace within your spirit. This was never just about a person. And the moment you truly understand that, everything begins to make sense in a way it never did before. Because what you've been experiencing, what you've been feeling, what you've been trying to process emotionally, it goes deeper than personality differences, misunderstandings, or simple incompatibility. It is not just about behavior. It is not just about words spoken or actions taken. It is about influence. It is about alignment. It is about a spiritual dynamic that has been operating beneath the surface of what you could physically see. This is why it felt confusing for so long. Because on the surface, everything may have looked normal. There may not have been enough evidence to justify how you felt. There may not have been a clear reason to pull away, to question the connection, or to create distance. And yet something in your spirit never fully settled. That is because your spirit was not responding to what was visible. It was responding to what was present. There are connections that feel easy because they are aligned. There are connections that feel heavy because they are not. And when something is not aligned with your growth, your peace, or your purpose, it creates friction, not always outwardly, but internally. A quiet resistance that you may not be able to explain, but you cannot ignore forever. This is the nature of a spiritual battle. It does not always show itself through obvious conflict. Sometimes it shows itself through subtle interference, through distraction, through emotional confusion, through a slow erosion of clarity. And that is exactly what has been happening. Because when your life begins to shift, when your awareness begins to rise, when you start stepping closer to who you are meant to become, there will always be resistance. Not necessarily from people themselves, but through them. And this is where you must be very clear. This is not about labeling someone as bad. This is about recognizing that not every presence is meant to remain in your life at every stage of your growth. Some people are aligned with who you were. Very few are aligned with who you are becoming. And when that shift happens, the connection either evolves or it begins to create tension. That tension you felt, that discomfort, you couldn't fully explain that sense of something being off even when everything looked fine. That was not random. That was misalignment being revealed. Because your spirit cannot fully expand in an environment that restricts it. Your clarity cannot fully develop in the presence of confusion. Your peace cannot fully anchor in the presence of subtle disruption. And when those things exist, even quietly, even indirectly, they begin to affect you over time. Not all at once. Not in a way that is obvious. But gradually, in the way you think, in the way you feel, in the way you respond to your own life. This is why the battle felt internal, because it was not about fighting someone. It was about maintaining yourself in an environment that was not fully supporting who you are becoming. And that takes energy. It takes awareness. It takes constant adjustment. And over time it becomes exhausting. This is why you felt drained without clear reason. This is why you felt confused when you should have felt clear. This is why you questioned yourself when your instincts were actually correct. Because you were navigating a situation that was not aligned while trying to keep it intact. And that creates internal conflict. But now the conflict is ending. Because you are no longer trying to force alignment where it does not exist. You are no longer ignoring what you feel. You are no longer suppressing your awareness to maintain comfort. You are recognizing the truth. And the truth is this connection was not meant to continue in the way it has been. Not because of blame, not because of failure, but because your path is shifting, and not everything from your past can move forward with you. This is why the spiritual battle had to take place, not to harm you, but to reveal what was no longer aligned. Because once something is revealed, it can be released. And once it is released, you are no longer bound by it. You are no longer influenced by it. You are no longer affected by it in the same way. And that is where your power returns. Not through confrontation, not through conflict, but through clarity, through awareness, through the decision to no longer remain connected to what disrupts your alignment. This is not about winning against someone. This is about reclaiming yourself. This is about stepping fully into your clarity without interference. This is about recognizing that what you felt was real, and now you no longer need to question it, because the battle has already shifted in your favor. The moment you became aware, you were no longer vulnerable to it in the same way. And that is why everything is changing now. Because you are no longer the same. Type "I stand in truth and clarity" in the comments if this resonates with your spirit. Buzzing code 6060 is now strengthening your alignment. Something is building and you can feel it. Not in a loud, chaotic way, but in a quiet, undeniable tension that has been increasing beneath the surface. It's like everything has been moving toward a moment. A point where what has been hidden can no longer remain contained. A point where what has been tolerated can no longer continue. A point where the shift you've been sensing finally becomes visible. This is the breaking point. And it is not something to fear. It is something to understand. Because when divine removal reaches this stage, it no longer stays subtle. The quiet distance, the internal detachment, the gradual awareness, all of it begins to converge into a moment of clarity that cannot be ignored. And that moment will come in a form that you recognize. It may be a conversation. It may be a sudden realization. It may be an action from them that reveals everything at once. Or it may simply be a moment where something inside you becomes so clear that you no longer need anything external to confirm it. But one way or another it will happen. Because what has been building cannot remain unresolved. This is where many people become uncertain. Because when the breaking point approaches, there is often a pull, a temptation to go back, to smooth things over, to avoid discomfort, to keep everything as it is just a little longer. You may feel that pull. You may feel the urge to reconnect, to give one more chance, to explain yourself, to seek understanding, to restore what is already being undone. But you must recognize what that urge really is. It is not alignment. It is attachment trying to hold on to what is already being released. Because when something reaches its breaking point, it is not meant to be repaired. It is meant to be revealed. And revelation changes everything. This is the moment where the truth becomes undeniable, not just in your thoughts, but in your reality. The patterns you once questioned will become obvious. The energy you once doubted will become clear. The misalignment you once tolerated will become impossible to ignore. And once that happens, you will not be able to return to how things were. Not because you don't want to, but because you will see too clearly. This is why the breaking point is necessary. Because without it, you might continue in uncertainty. You might continue questioning yourself. You might continue trying to make something work that was never meant to continue. But with it there is no confusion. There is no hesitation. There is only clarity. And clarity creates movement. This is also the moment where their role becomes visible. Not in a way that requires confrontation or conflict, but in a way that allows you to finally understand the impact they have had on your life. You will see the patterns. You will see the influence. You will see the subtle ways in which your energy, your clarity, your direction has been affected. And when you see it, you will not feel anger. You will feel release. Because understanding removes emotional weight. It removes the need to question. It removes the need to hold on. It replaces confusion with certainty. And certainty makes letting go easier. But here is what you must be prepared for. The breaking point may not look dramatic. It may not come with a clear ending or a defined moment of separation. It may come quietly in a way that only you fully understand. And that is enough. You do not need a scene. You do not need validation from them. You do not need closure in the way you once thought you did. Because closure is not something they give you. It is something you arrive at when the truth becomes clear. And that is exactly what is happening. You are arriving at clarity. You are arriving at understanding. You are arriving at a point where continuing no longer feels natural and letting go no longer feels impossible. This is the transition. This is where everything shifts from internal awareness to external reality. And when it happens, you must trust it. Do not resist the outcome. Do not delay the process. Do not try to soften what is meant to be final. Because this moment is not happening to disrupt your life. It is happening to realign it. Everything that follows this point will move differently. Your energy will stabilize. Your clarity will deepen. Your sense of peace will become more consistent. Because what was once interfering will no longer have access. This is the power of the breaking point. It does not destroy you. It defines you direction. And once it passes, there is no going back. Only forward. I embrace the shift in the comments if you are ready for what comes next. Blessing code 7070 is now activating movement and clarity in your life. Even now, as everything is shifting, as clarity is rising, as separation is unfolding, there is something else happening that you cannot see, but you are absolutely covered by. You are being protected. Not in a passive way, not in a distant or symbolic way. This is active. This is intentional. This is precise. Because when something is removed from your life by divine order, it is never done without protection surrounding the process. And this is where your perspective must shift. Because what may feel like loss on the surface is actually shielding emotion beneath it. There are things you were never meant to experience. There are outcomes that were never meant to reach you. There are consequences that were quietly forming but have now been intercepted. And you may never fully see what you were being protected from. But you will feel the difference. You will feel it in the way your mind begins to settle. You will feel it in the way your energy stabilizes. You will feel it in the way your environment begins to feel lighter, clearer, more aligned. Because protection does not always announce itself. It reveals itself through peace. And if you are paying attention, that peace is already starting to find you. Even in the middle of this transition. Even while things are still unfolding. Even while you are still processing what is happening. There is a part of you that feels relieved. A quiet sense of release. A subtle awareness that something heavy is no longer sitting on your spirit the same way it once did. That is not coincidence. That is confirmation. Because when Archangel Michael removes something, he does not leave a void. He replaces it with covering. He replaces it with space that cannot be easily accessed again. He replaces it with boundaries that are not forced but naturally upheld. And this is why you must not interfere with what is happening. Because protection works best when it is not resisted. If you try to reconnect, if you try to reopen what is being closed, if you try to force understanding where clarity has already been given, you risk stepping outside of what is actively shielding you. Not because you will be punished, but because protection cannot hold what you choose to reattach yourself to. This is why trust is required now. Not blind trust, but grounded trust in what you have already seen, what you have already felt, what has already been revealed to you. Because you are not being left alone in this. You are being repositioned. And repositioning always comes with protection. There are moments ahead where you will realize just how necessary this separation was. Moments where you will see clearly how things could have unfolded differently if this had continued. Moments where you will recognize that what felt uncomfortable at first was actually keeping you from something far more disruptive. And when those moments come, everything will make sense. You will not question why it happened. You will understand why it had to. This is the power of divine protection. It does not always explain itself immediately, but it always proves itself over time. And right now you are in the early stage of that proof. You are beginning to feel the difference. You are beginning to notice the shift. You are beginning to experience what it feels like when something that was quietly interfering is no longer present in the same way. And this is only the beginning. Because protection is not just about removal. It is about preservation. It is about ensuring that what is meant for you, what is aligned with you, what is meant to grow with you is not disrupted by what no longer belongs. So as this continues to unfold, remain still. Remain aware. Remain grounded in what you already know to be true. You do not need to go searching for answers. You do not need to go back and analyze every detail. You do not need to reopen doors that have already begun to close. Because what is meant to be removed will not remain, and what is meant to remain will not require force. You are being guided into a space where your peace is no longer fragile, where your clarity is no longer questioned, where your energy is no longer influenced in subtle ways that drain you over time. And that space is protected. So trust what is happening. Trust what is shifting. Trust what is being taken out of your life even if you don't fully understand it yet. Because what you are being protected from is something you no longer have to carry. Type "I am divinely protected" in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 8080 is now surrounding your path with divine covering. As this protection settles around your life, understand this truth. Every word you receive here becomes a flame that lights another soul still walking in darkness. When you release your support through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are not just giving, you are sowing into a harvest of awakened hearts. The Lord declares, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it shall return to you." And right now, your seed becomes a river flowing into lives that are desperate for clarity and truth. I feel this deeply. You are not here by accident, and neither is this moment of giving. This is your opportunity to move in obedience, to act in alignment, to become part of something eternal. Do not delay the call placed on your spirit. Release your seed now, and watch how heaven responds with overflow, favor, and divine increase. This is the part where everything becomes real. Not just in your thoughts, not just in your feelings, but in your actions. Because now you are entering a season of separation. And separation requires something that many people struggle with even when they know it's necessary. It requires you to let go without resistance. Not forcefully, not angrily, not grammatically, but consciously, intentionally, with clarity. Because by now, you have seen enough. You have felt enough. You have understood enough to know that what is happening is not confusion, it is direction. And yet, even with all this clarity, there can still be a pull. A quiet voice that says, "Maybe I should just try one more time." A thought that says, "What if I'm misunderstanding this?" A feeling that says, "It wasn't always like this, maybe it can go back." This is the final test of attachment. Because letting go is not difficult when something is clearly broken. It is difficult when something still carries pieces of what once felt real, when there are still memory, till moments, still traces of connection that make you hesitate. But you must understand something now that will change how you move forward. You are not being asked to forget what was good. You are being asked to release what no longer is. There is a difference. Because holding on to the past version of someone does not make the present version align with you. And trying to preserve what once existed will only keep you connected to something that has already changed. This is why resistance is dangerous in this moment. Because resistance delays what is already meant to be completed. It keeps you in a space that you have already outgrown. It prolongs the emotional process that is trying to resolve itself. And most importantly, it pulls your focus backward when everything is trying to move you forward. This is why you must let go without resistance. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Because what is leaving your life right now is not being taken randomly. It is being removed with purpose. And when something is removed with purpose, trying to hold on to it only creates unnecessary tension. You may feel that tension already. That inner conflict between what you feel and what you are used to. Between what you know and what you are comfortable with. But clarity must take priority over comfort. Because comfort can keep you in places that no longer serve you, while clarity moves you into alignment. This is where your strength is required, not the strength to fight, not the strength to confront, but the strength to allow the distance to grow, to allow the connection to fade, to allow the process to complete itself without interference. Because the truth is you are not the one ending this. It is already ending. You are simply choosing not to stop it. And that choice changes everything. Because when you stop resisting, something powerful happens. The emotional weight begins to lift. The overthinking begins to quiet down. The need for answers begins to fade. And you start to feel something that you may not have felt clearly in a long time. Relief. Not immediate, not overwhelming, but steady, growing, real. Because you are no longer holding on to something that your spirit has already released. And once that alignment happens internally, everything else begins to follow. The conversations become less frequent. The connection becomes less active. The presence becomes less necessary, and eventually it becomes clear that what once felt important no longer holds the same place in your life. This is not loss. This is transition. And every transition requires a moment where you choose to move forward without trying to carry what cannot come with you. So in this season, do not chase. Do not explain. Do not reopen what is closing. Because what is meant to stay will remain without force, and what is meant to leave will fade without effort. Trust that. Trust what you feel. Trust what has been revealed. And most importantly, trust what is being removed. Because it is creating space for something that will not require you to question your peace. Type ILET GO with trust in the comments if you are ready to move forward. Blessing code 9090 is now releasing peace and closure into your life. Now that the space has been created, something new is preparing to enter. And this is the part many people overlook when something is removed from their life. They focus so deeply on what is leaving that they fail to recognize what is making its way toward them. But divine removal is never just about taking something away. It is about making room. Because what was occupying that space in your life was not capable of supporting what is coming next. It could not grow with you. It could not align with where you are being led. It could not sustain the level of clarity, peace, and purpose that is beginning to form within you. So it had to be moved. Not as punishment. Not as loss. but as preparation. Because restoration does not arrive into crowded spaces, it arrives into cleared ones. And right now your life is being cleared. This is why it may feel quiet. This is why things may feel slower than usual. This is why you may feel like you are in between something, not fully connected to the past, but not yet fully engaged with what is next. This is not emptiness. This is transition. This is the moment where your life is resetting its alignment. Because what is coming is not meant to resemble what was removed. It is meant to surpass it. In clarity, in consistency, in peace, in truth. Because what is aligned with you does not create confusion in your spirit. It does not make you question your instincts. It does not leave you feeling uncertain about where you stand. What is aligned with you feels steady. It feels clear. It feels natural in a way that does not require effort to maintain. And that is what is being prepared for you now. New connections, new energy, new opportunities, new dynamics that reflect who you are becoming, not who you used to be. But here is what you must understand: restoration does not always arrive immediately after removal. Here is a space in between, a space where you are being recalibrated, a space where your standards are being refined, a space where your awareness is becoming sharper. Because if what is coming arrived too soon before this process was complete, you might not recognize its value. You might not receive it with the clarity it deserves. You might still be holding on to old patterns, old expectations, old ways of connecting that no longer serve you. So instead there is a pause, a necessary pause, not to delay you but to prepare you. Because what is being aligned for you now requires you to meet it differently, with more awareness, with stronger boundaries, with a deeper sense of self that does not compromise for the sake of familiarity. This is the restoration process. It is not just about what enters your life. It is about who you are when it arrives. Because the version of you that accepted misalignment is not the version of you that will receive what is coming next. You have changed. You have grown. You have become more aware, more selective, more aligned with your truth. And because of that, what is entering your life will reflect that change. It will not feel like something you have to figure out. It will feel like something you recognize. Because it will match your clarity. It will match your peace. It will match your direction. This is why you must not rush this process. Do not try to fill the space too quickly. Do not try to replace what was removed with something that feels similar just to avoid the discomfort of transition. Because what is meant for you will not require you to settle. And what you settle for now will only delay what is already being aligned. Trust the space. Trust the pause. Trust the process of restoration. Because what is being prepared for you is not just better. It is right. And when it arrives, you will not feel confusion. You will feel confirmation. You will not feel hesitation. You will feel alignment. You will not feel the need to question it. Because it will already match everything you have come to understand about yourself. This is what divine replacement looks like. It does not repeat the past. It elevates you beyond it. And everything you have just moved through was preparing you for that elevation. Type "I am ready for what is aligned" in the comments if you trust what is coming. Blessing code 1010 is now activating restoration and alignment in your life. And now listen carefully, because this part matters more than you realize. The door that is closing right now must remain closed. Not partially. Not temporarily. Completely. Because once something has been revealed, once clarity has been given, once separation has begun, going back is no longer harmless. It is no longer neutral. It becomes a choice that goes against everything you have just come to understand. And this is where many people make their biggest mistake. They reach this point, they see the truth, they feel the shift, they experience the release, and then, slowly, widely, they reopen the door. Not all at once, but gradually. A message here, a response there, a moment of curiosity, a moment of nostalgia, a moment where they think, maybe it's different now. But what they fail to realize is this: if something had truly changed, the removal would not have been necessary. The clarity would not have come. The distance would not have formed. The process you have just gone through would not have unfolded the way it did. Because divine removal does not happen without reason. And once it happens, it is not meant to be reversed. This is your final warning. Not out of fear, but out of awareness. Because what you allow back into your life after clarity carries a different weight than what you accepted before you knew. Before, you were unaware. Now, you are not. Before, you questioned your instincts. Now, you trust them. Before, you tolerated misalignment. Now, you recognize it. And because of that, going back is no longer just a decision. It is a contradiction. A contradiction to your growth. A contradiction to your awareness. A contradiction to the clarity that has been given to you. This is why you must remain firm, even when it feels uncomfortable, even when there is a pull, even when they try to re-enter in subtle ways. Because understand this, they may come back. Not always directly, not always in obvious ways, but often in forms that feel familiar. A message that seems casual, a question that seems harmless, a moment that feels like coincidence. But it is not coincidence. It is access trying to be regained. And this is where your boundaries must be clear, not explained, not negotiated, but understood by you. Because you do not need to prove anything to them. You do not need to justify your distance. You do not need to explain your silence. You do not need to re-engage just to be polite or to avoid discomfort. Because what you are protecting now is far more valuable than maintaining what has already been released. You are protecting your clarity. You are protecting your peace. You are protecting your alignment. And those things once disrupted take time to restore again. This is why the door must remain closed. Not because you are holding on to negativity, but because you are honoring what has been revealed. Because reopening the door does not bring closure. It reintroduces confusion. It reactivates old patterns. It reconnects you to the same energy that has already been removed for a reason. And the truth is, if you go back, it will not feel the same. Not because they have changed, but because you have. And once you have seen clearly, you cannot pretend not to see. Once you have felt the difference, you cannot ignore it. Once you have stepped into alignment, misalignment becomes uncomfortable in a way it never was before. So if the opportunity comes, if the door tries to open again, if the connection attempts to re-establish itself, pause. Remember what you have learned. Remember what you have felt. Remember what has been revealed to you. And choose accordingly. Not based on emotion. Not based on memory. But based on truth. Because the truth is, you have already moved forward. And going back is no longer part of your path. This is not about rejection. This is about direction. And your direction is no longer aligned with what has been removed. So stand in that. Stay in that. Do not weaken your clarity for the sake of temporary comfort. Because what you are protecting now is what will carry you into everything that is meant for you next. Type "I keep the door closed" in the comments if you are committed to your path. Blessing code 1111 is now sealing your boundaries and strengthening your resolve. This is where everything shifts. Not slowly, not subtly, but completely. Because what you have just walked through, what you have just endured, what you have just released has brought you to a point where your life cannot return to what it once was. Not because you are forcing change, but because you have become change. You are not the same person who once tolerated confusion. You are not the same person who once ignored intuition. You are not the same person who once stayed connected out of habit rather than alignment. Something in you has awakened. Something in you has solidified. Something in you now stands with a level of clarity that cannot be undone. And that is what elevation truly is. It is not just about gaining something new. It is about becoming someone new. Because the moment you chose to see clearly, the moment you chose to release without resistance, the moment you chose to trust what was being removed instead of holding on to it, you step into a different level of yourself. A level where your standards are no longer negotiable. A level where your peace is no longer fragile. A level where your clarity is no longer questioned. And from this level, everything begins to align differently. The people who enter your life will reflect your awareness. The opportunities that come your way will match your readiness. The environment around you will begin to feel more stable, more consistent, more supportive of who you are becoming. Because you are no longer operating from the same place. You are no longer accepting what once felt normal. You are no longer allowing subtle misalignment to exist without recognizing it. You have elevated. An elevation changes everything. This is why what comes next will feel different. Not because it is unfamiliar, but because it is finally aligned. There will be less confusion, less second-guessing, less emotional fluctuation caused by external influence. Because you have removed what was interfering. And now there is space for what is meant to remain. But here is what you must remember as you step into this new phase. Do not lower yourself to reconnect with what you have already outgrown. Do not revisit what has already been revealed. Do not question the clarity you have gained just because the past feels familiar. Because familiarity is not a reason to return. Growth is a reason to move forward. And you have grown. You have grown beyond what once held you in place. You have grown beyond what once confused you. You have grown beyond what once felt necessary. And now you are stepping into a life where alignment is no longer something you search for. It is something you recognize. Instantly. Naturally. Without doubt. This is your elevation. This is your new standard. This is the version of you that no longer compromises peace for connection, that no longer sacrifices clarity for comfort, that no longer stays where it no longer belongs. And as you move forward from this point, everything that enters your life will be filtered through this awareness. And that is how you protect your future. Not by controlling everything around you, but by maintaining who you have become. Because who you are now does not attract what you have just released. Who you are now aligns with something higher, something clearer, something stronger. And that is exactly what is coming. So stand firm in this. Walk forward in this. Trust this version of yourself. Because your life is not going back to what it was. It is moving into what it was meant to be. And nothing that has been removed was meant to follow you there. Type "I step into my elevation" in the comments if you receive this truth. Blessing code 1212 is now activating your next level. As you step into this elevation, understand this. Your obedience, your awareness, your presence here is not just for you, it is part of a greater calling to awaken others who are still trapped in confusion. When you release your support through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description, you are not giving money. You are sowing light, planting seeds of truth that will break chains in someone else's life. The Lord declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And this is not just a promise. It is a living flow that returns to you multiplied. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to act, to respond, to align your generosity with divine purpose. Do not hesitate. Do not delay what heaven is placing on your heart right now. Your seed carries power, your action carries purpose, and your obedience unlocks overflow. Release your seed now and become part of the movement that is setting souls free.